Oh, what's going on, guys? Gamer Dude back once again, and this time we're moving into the realm of hypothetical scenarios and pure theory. And I want to emphasize that this is pure theory. None of this is confirmed. None of this is happening. I just wanted to put out there my thoughts for this game project or whatever. Anyway, moving on. So, y'all know the routine. If you are new to the channel, please make sure you smash that like button and drop me a subscribe. It would be super appreciated. And just your good deed of the day. Same applies if you are a returning subscriber. Now then, as I said, this video is just going to be about theory and speculation and what I feel as a fan we need to see from Spider-Man 2. So, first things first, the suits. Now, the first game, as well as Miles Morales, came with a robust selection of suits. But I feel it could be a little bit more refined. Anybody remember the Amazing Spider-Man games that were based on Andrew Garfield's era? Well, how about having it like that? Instead of a suit selection like the one that we got, how about, instead of just quick changing like this and then it popping in game, you have to go back to your apartment like you did in the Amazing Spider-Man game, and all those suits are on coat hangers in his closet. I thought that was really cool, because this way, yeah, it's cool that they gave us so many suits. I mean, forgive the footage on screen, I'm using an older build of the game for this footage, but still, it came with so many suits, and they were all free. We got more in the DLC, we got the Raimi suit, we got the Amazing Spider-Man suit. And that's particularly why I'm talking about how this should really implement that game's suit design. Because in the Amazing Spider-Man 2, we even got the Spider-Carnage suit, and that was my all-time favourite suit. I love that suit. But yeah, my point is, imagine if you're wearing the Insomniac Spider-Man suit, and you just unlock a new suit. Instead of having direct access to it, like you do here, I think it would be really cool if you wanted to go to change suits. You had to go back to Peter's apartment, and then you can just change the suit there. And the Amazing Spider-Man 2 had upgrades for each particular suit. The suits in that game had levels. Imagine if they added the leveling system instead of just acquiring tokens for upgrades. It would be better if the suits appeared in the apartment or wherever he lives in the next game. You know, it would make a change, like I say, instead of just quick changing while out in the city, because that just seems a little bit unrealistic, in my opinion. So the next thing I want to discuss is the upgrade system. Now, 90% of Spider-Man games have upgrade systems, going all the way back to the Sam Raimi Spider-Man games on the PS2. And, well, Spider-Man 3 was on the PS3 and PS2 as well. There's actually two different versions of that game. It was really weird. They were both very different, and it was really weird. But, yeah, anyway, I'm getting ahead of myself. Now, they could make it a little harder to acquire certain upgrades, because I felt it was a little bit too easy to acquire these upgrades. Like, you do one, say, Taskmaster challenge, and you've got 2 skill points. Or you do a particular mission, and you've got 2 skill points. Or you finish a chapter, and you've gone and got 3 skill points. It just felt a little bit too easy, like a little bit too quick. I want a challenge when I play through the game. Not to say I don't love it, it's just it felt a little bit too quick and a little bit too easy. So if they made them a little bit harder to acquire, like in Spider-Man Miles Morales, for example, you had to do all those traversal challenges, but even those, when you finish them, didn't give you a full upgrade. You only went up like half a bar. So I think if they implemented that, that'd work. That'd be just fine by me. But that's all I want to say on the upgrade system, because other than that, it was perfect. I loved it. Now, moving on to the open world. Now, the majority of Spider-Man games have vast open worlds, and it is very important for Spidey to be featured in his natural habitat, the concrete jungle. But it would also be nice to explore, say, Queens, Forest Hills, Liberty Island. Hell, I'd even take Jersey. Not to say that Manhattan isn't a vast open world in itself, but even in earlier Spider-Man games, from the PS2 to the PS3, their open worlds featured Queens, Liberty Island. Look at Spider-Man 2 on the PS2. Sam Raimi's Spider-Man 2, that is. You could go to Liberty Island, you could go to Forest Hills, you could go to Queens. It felt like a diverse open world, and for what it was back in the day, it was huge, it was big. And then we got Marvel Spider-Man, and with them just limiting it to New York, it felt really small. Because you couldn't even get to Liberty Island without glitching it. You couldn't get to the raft, and it's just a big thing there. It's like, I want to go over there, I want to explore it without being shot at and blown up with rockets, or having a helicopter fall on my head. But you see where I'm going with it? Like, I feel like if they added all those extra bits into New York, that would make it feel more like home. Because at the end of Spider-Man Miles Morales, Peter mentions after his Aunt May died that he's now living in her house. And I'm guessing her house in this universe is in Forest Hills or Queens. So it would be nice to, feature that area in the next game. And, when he has to go home to change, to go to work, or to just to do something, it would be nice if he actually got to go there instead of on the roof of a homeless shelter. Because that was just a bit on the nose, and anybody could have noticed that, wait, Spider-Man went up, this dude came down. Okay, I think I figured out who Spider-Man is. It's like, it doesn't work well for the whole secret identity thing. I mean, I suppose the same could be said coming in and out of a house in Forest Hills or Queens, but people are less likely to notice. If you're going into a heavily populated homeless shelter, because I know homelessness in New York is just off the chain. So that's where I'm going with that. It's like, well, someone's gonna notice. But yeah, anyway, I just feel like if they include those extra areas of the city, even if there's no missions there, it'll just make it feel more real. It'll make it feel more like New York, the real New York experience. Because when I was playing Spider-Man 2 and again Spider-Man 3, both Sam Raimi's Spider-Man 2 and 3, I felt like if I went to New York in real life after playing those games, I would know my way around. Not to say I wouldn't have to look at a map here and there, but I would probably know my way around. It'd be like, oh, I recognize that from the game. But with Marvel Spider-Man, it's like, I'd feel like if I was going to go to New York after playing this game, I'd be like, I'm kind of lost. Where do I go? Is it over there? Is it over here? You know what I'm trying to say? I mean, I know I sound a bit freaky, I know I sound a bit on the nose, but basically what I'm saying is give us a bigger map. The first map was vast, of course, but even in Miles Morales, the map was still the same size. We only got that one extra explorable area, the Oscorp building, Science Center, which actually wasn't there in the first game, so bit of a continuity error there, Insomniac, but we're going to let that drop. We're going to let that slide, just because the games are so awesome. We're going to let it drop. But yeah, anyway, moving on. I want to talk about Spider-Man's air tricks. Now, not to say that his air tricks weren't totally fun to pull off, but they were very limited. It's like, oh, it can do a spin and a roly-poly. But then you play Miles Morales, and he has so many different air tricks. He's got the tricks from Into the Spider-Verse movie. He's got unique Venom air tricks. You can combo your Venom with the air tricks. I thought that was really cool. So Obviously, we know that Spider-Man, both Spider-Man, that is, are known for their acrobatics. But it would be awesome to have some of the acrobatics featured from the Miles Morales game, for Peter Parker to use them. Like maybe Peter and Miles were out on patrol one day, and Peter's like, "Oh, that's a cool move. I'm gonna steal that. I'm gonna use that for myself. I like that." It's the kind of thing when you're out and about with your friend, you meet up with your friend at the theater or the cinema, for example, and you like the look of their hair. You're like, "I like your hairstyle. I'm gonna do that. Do you mind if I nick that?" It's that kind of deal, uh, Peter's never been in this universe. That is, he's never been in that situation where he can copy off another hero like himself. Because as far as I know, yes, the Avengers exist in this universe, but there's no other spider-based heroes up until Miles comes along. There's no other bug-themed heroes, because I don't think Ant-Man exists in this universe. I think it's just the primary Avengers like Black Widow, Captain America, Iron Man, Hulk, and Hawkeye. I think it's just those primary Avengers. I don't think they've got a whole roster like the Justice League. I think it's just the primary ones. But anyway, I would really like Peter to have some extra tricks. Just to shake things up a little, because we saw in the trailer that they dropped, he's got those new spider arms. So like when you're swinging about and you kind of on the nose do a trick for a bit too long, and you land and you just do that weird facial splat thing. Well, it'd be cool if the arms kind of like extended out before you go splat, and kind of rolled you across the floor, and then you could do a jump out of it and just start swinging again. That's the kind of thing I want to see. I don't know about you guys, but I think that would be really cool. But anyway, yeah, let's move on. Next, I want to talk about the traversal. Obviously, the traversal is awesome. Probably by far the best of any Spider-Man game. But I feel it could be improved upon slightly, as it was sometimes quite clumsy and would cause you to smash into buildings and lose your momentum. It was somewhat addressed in Miles Morales, but not by a huge amount. Because like when you were wall running along a wall and you did that weird web twisty thing to go around the building like that, it could propel you like halfway across the city, and then you just slam into a building. So I feel like that needs to be improved upon a little. Maybe do something similar to what they did in Amazing Spider-Man 2, where you had that weird slow down time thing, and you could sort of jump from point to point. Maybe not so simplistic, but something on the lines of that. I feel like that would be really cool. So next up, I would like to talk about J. Jonah Jameson. Now, J. Jonah Jameson has to be anywhere Spider-Man is. He just has to be. He's I hate to say it, but he's Spider-Man's arch nemesis. He's his arch enemy. He doesn't have any superpowers. He's not a criminal. He's not a supervillain. But he's still his arch nemesis. Jameson says all this trash about Spider-Man. He hates Spider-Man with a passion, and there is a story behind it. It's because Jameson, in his younger years, when he went by Jigsaw Jameson, at least that is in the comic books, a masked man was trying to kill him for exposing what he was doing in the mob, and this masked man killed Jameson's family. And I'm going to guess that it's similar for every single version of J. Jonah Jameson as to why he hates masked heroes. Because if you think about it, the Avengers, yeah, Tony Stark wears a mask, but he's a public hero. Everyone knows Iron Man is Tony Stark. Hulk, everyone knows Hulk is Bruce Banner. Black Widow, everyone knows it's Natasha Romanoff. Hawkeye, everybody knows his name's Clint Barton. You get what I'm trying to say there? Like, Spider-Man, he's not a public hero. I mean, he's public in the public eye, of course, but I mean, he's not public in the way that he shares his identity, like the Avengers do. He's a singular element. If he revealed his identity, he would blacklist himself. It'd be a bad case of my name is Peter Parker and I am Spider-Man. And then you'd get villains showing up at his doorstep and have Mary Jane and Aunt May being like, "You had to tell people." It'd just be the same with everybody that he knows and loves. They'd just be like, "You had to tell people." Oh look, Doc Ock showing up at my front door. You had to tell people. Oh look, the Scorpion. You had to tell people. You get what I'm trying to say there. But what I feel about Jameson, because I was getting way off track there. I thought the Just the Facts little podcast things were absolutely brilliant. But I didn't like the randomization, and they did come at rather inappropriate times or in the wrong order. Like, if you were about to start a mission, it popped up and it's like, oh, come on, I've just missed that now. And then you had to go back and listen to it again, which not a lot of people like doing until they finish the game. And if they came up in the wrong order, it's like, say you've just done 3 story missions and then you've done 2 hideouts. Jameson will probably in the game, that is, he probably had like 4 podcasts to talk about that, and they came in the wrong order, and it was a bit confusing because you were like, well, hang on a minute, I've only just done that one. And then the next one came on and it was about the mission you did about 2 hours ago, and it's like, well, why has that one come now? Shouldn't that one have come first? What I'm saying is that they could handle it a little bit better and make it less inappropriate. But I do think it would be great for a more accurate Jameson. Have him back at the helm of the Daily Bugle instead of on that stupid, ridiculous podcast. And, maybe have Peter Parker back working there, because in the Miles Morales story, Peter was freelancing for the Bugle. He was taking pictures in Sokovia, was it? I think it was Sokovia. Anyway, it was Silver Sable's homeland. I can't remember the name properly. I'm just going to say Sokovia. I know I'm probably wrong. Correct me. You know what to do. But anyway, perhaps his Just the Facts podcast maybe failed over the more popular Danny podcast that was featured in Miles Morales. It would be awesome to have the Peter Parker that we know as a photographer, because even in the first game, you can take pictures of cities. There's even the hidden photo ops. I got all of them, by the way. But still, it would be great if you could do some photography side missions for the Bugle. Like, you've got to take some pictures of pigeons in the park, or some geezers playing chess, as Jameson so elegantly put it in the Spider-Man 2 movie. But I would love it if the Danny podcast really overtook the Jameson podcast, and Danny was the more popular one because she idolizes the Spider-Men. She's not a hater of them. Jameson publicly speaking on a podcast only about Spider-Man, because that's literally all he does. He'll have someone on for an interview, and then he'll talk about Spider-Man. It's like, dude, enough. We get it. You hate Spider-Man. Go back to your newspaper. Nobody reads them anyway. Your print is dead. Do that. Do it that way. But I'd also like to see some like mini levels included, like Mary Jane missions, but instead playing as Peter Parker, taking some pictures. So in the first game we had those mini Mary Jane missions, like the stealth side of things. Scrap all that. Just have you play as Peter Parker taking pictures, and then there's an explosion or something, and you have to find a quiet alleyway to change into Spider-Man, and you've got to stop that, or just have it as a timed mission where you've got to take some specific photos, but you've got to go down, change into Peter, or you've got to go down, set up the cameras, change into Peter, do it real quick, and then you've got to get back to the Bugle in a set amount of time. that's what I'd like to see anyway from Jameson and the Bugle and just side characters in general, because we all love Spider-Man, but I don't think Peter Parker got the love he deserved in this game. Peter Parker was sort of relegated to the nerdy side character that nobody really bothers with. So moving on, we're going to be talking a little bit about Miles Morales game. Have a version of the Friendly Neighborhood app in Spider-Man 2. Because the Friendly Neighborhood app was amazing. I absolutely adored the Friendly Neighborhood map. It was such a time saver. It was brilliant. But it was really handy, that app. It made it much easier accessing the missions and crimes as opposed to just swinging around waiting for them to pop up and looking for a crime. So instead of that, you could just open this app and go directly to the source. Or even instead of trying to find a specific crime to complete the challenges, you can just open the app and redo the same crime to complete the challenge. How much easier is that? If anybody watching has played Miles Morales, you can't tell me that it wasn't much easier with the Friendly Neighborhood app in that game. And Miles Morales, the game itself is basically a glorified DLC to the Spider-Man game. And for what it was brilliant. It was really, really good. So I would love to see the return of the Friendly Neighborhood app just so we can replay a mission that we really liked, or replay a crime that we cocked up on, or just replay a mission at any point in the story that we really liked, or that we cocked up on, or we didn't get a specific collectible on, or something. I think that'd be really cool. And speaking of collectibles, we all know both Spider-Man games had collectibles. You had the backpacks, you had the techie gear stuff in Miles Morales. So what I think they should do, because it was a little bit too easy to find them in both games, is have some kind of like beeper available in your mask instead of them just being there, because they were all marked on the map. No matter what difficulty you played it on, they were all marked on the map when you unlocked all of the map, that is. They were all there. And it just made it a little bit too easy. It was like, well, you can unlock the entire map and find all the collectibles within 20 minutes, half an hour if you're lucky. And I just felt like it took away the experience, It made it a little bit too easy, and it didn't drag out the free mode of the game enough. Because that's what people love about the Spider-Man games, the swinging around, the free mode, the finding stuff, the collecting stuff, finding the Easter eggs. That's the kind of stuff we want to see. Or the kind of stuff I want to see anyway. Next up, and this is the big one. No more freaking screwball style challenges. I freaking hated those. Photobomb! It was blagged my head did that. It was like, no! Why do I have to do this again? Can't someone just drop this woman off a cliff? Please. It's too much. It's like Spider-Man. Just dangle her off a roof and say, no! No more! No, we're not doing this. We're not doing this today. You crazy mofo. We're not doing this today. Damn. But yeah, although we did all love the main story and its vast array of side quests, the first game had to offer the worst of all was the screwball challenges. Like I said, I am still haunted at night by photobomb. It's like, no. It's like it's the one thing that I can't take the game seriously for when I'm replaying it. It was just incredibly annoying, and it felt really played out. After catching her once, it didn't need to drag on. She was the most annoying character of the game. It was absolutely ridiculous. You had to start her side mission in order to progress through the main story. I know a lot of games do that, but why, oh why did it have to be start a screwball challenge? Couldn't they have added another villain in her place? Like, I don't know, the Chameleon, Beetle, Sandman, Hydra Man, any other side villain than Screwball. I mean, we got Tombstone. Couldn't they have replaced Screwball with somebody else? Like, please, just don't do it again. Don't bring her back. Oh, if they bring her back, I'm going to punch something very, very hard. But I think everyone can agree that she should be replaced with one of those more iconic characters I just mentioned. You know, Chameleon, Beetle, Sandman, Hydro Man. It wouldn't even be a bother if they were side missions. You know, given that Tombstone and essentially Shocker were both relegated to side villains. But again, that's just my opinion. Let me know what you guys think. Next up, I want to talk about the weathering system. The research stations. Amazing. At the end of the game, they allowed you to change the time of day. Now, I think it would be great to include something similar to change the weather or the time of day. You know, but this time, let us add in snow, rain, puddles. You know, the joke for puddles, because the whole puddle thing that went around the first Spider-Man game with that trailer. Anyway. But it'd be awesome to see a storm included as well, where you can't see 2 feet in front of you. A similar storm to the Miles Morales game, because that was literally the most beautiful weather effect I have ever seen. You know, it was fantastic, especially on the PS5 in full 4K. It was beautiful, and it was flawlessly done. Also, yeah, I think the day and night cycle choices need to return as well. And like, have it specifically in the game, like, let the time of day pass by instead of it just going by when you start a mission. Like, if you're swinging around all day as Spider-Man, let the time progress. You know, say if you start at noon, let it progress into night as you go through. You know, because say 6 hours towards is 6 hours, but in a game, 6 hours is what, an hour? So let it be something like that. You know, you start during the day, and then as you progress through doing all this free mode stuff, it gets dark, and then Peter's like, "Oh, I'm tired. I've got to go home," and you have to go home because it really is no fun just being out the whole time, doing everything all at once. You know, it would be nice to include something like that. Next up, I'd like to talk about Spider-Man's web shooters. Now, obviously, when his web shooters run out, we can see him replace the cartridge in both games. But I think it'd be quite awesome if you actually ran out of web fluid while you were swinging. And, you know, you had to think fast while landing to change the cartridges. Like, you had to press a specific button, like it went into a slow-mo sequence, like, or a mini cutscene. It shows him doing the thwipping, but nothing's coming out. And he's like, oh no! Starts falling, and then it drops into, like, this mini action sequence where you've got to press a button to quickly change cartridges. Something like that. I think that would be absolutely incredible. And I think it would add to the playable experience. It would make it feel that much more realistic. Because say you've been swinging around the game for about an hour, and then you suddenly run out. It's like, oh crap! It gives you that oh crap moment, you know? And you can make so many funny, hilarious videos out of that as well. Now, the next one is a big one. And I feel like it needs to be less tech dependent. Now, all the tech and gadgets were great in both games, not gonna lie. But it felt too much like a Batman game. You know, in the sense that pretty much every stealth mission relied on the trap webs or the web bombs or all of your combat relied on these gadgets. Because otherwise, you just got the shit kicked out of you, basically by common thugs. It's Spidey never really needed enhanced gear or gadgets to be a superhero before. Well, aside from the Homecoming saga with his, you know, completely tech suit. But let's skip over that for a moment. I think they should tone it down a little bit with the gadgets and maybe make his suit less tech dependent. Like get rid of that whole scanning thing from the first game and Miles Morales. That was a bit too much. Like I said earlier, have that like beeping system in place when you get close to something or something. Maybe not a beep, but you get what I'm trying to say with that. But I think the dependence on the gadgets and tech should all disappear altogether, to be quite honest. Perhaps with the symbiote suit, the feeling of dependence on the gadgets and tech will disappear altogether until he removes the suit, because we don't know what that symbiote's going to be like. We don't know if it'll have tendrils, if it'll be like, you're fighting and you throw tendrils all over the place, or if it'll just be the same as a regular costume. You'll just be stronger and more aggressive. Moving on again. More villains. Definitely more villains. I mean, the first game, great assortment of villains, of course. Now, in the second game, we know we're getting, obviously, Venom and Kraven. But that's all we know. So, what do we want to see? And who would we like to see return? So, we've already discussed Screwball and who we'd like to see replace her. But I would really like to talk about the Green Goblin. In this universe, there doesn't seem to have been a goblin infestation early in Spider-Man's career. Because, like other iterations, Goblin was one of Spider-Man's first major baddies. But in this universe, Peter says it himself, Vulture was one of the first big bads he ever fought. Green Goblin never existed in this universe. But I think it would be amazing to see Norman become the Goblin in this second game. Because we did see what looked like pumpkin bombs on the table in Norman's secret spider room where he kept Harry and the symbiote. So it isn't impossible, considering it took, in this game's universe and timeline, 10 years for Doc Ock, another big player in Spider-Man's universe, to be born, when he was one of Spidey's first villains in other iterations of the character. But even if it's just for some post-credits action, or even a DLC, like the original 3 DLCs for the 2018 game, it would be cool to see Green Goblin appear in some shape or form. But Chameleon, he's a shoo-in in my opinion, because he was referenced in the previous game. It was never actually shown, but he does exist. Because when you do that side mission in the first game, and you talk to some guy about Spider-Man saving people, Spider-Man goes up to this guy and he's like, "Oh, you're back. What are you doing here?" And he tells Spider-Man that another Spider-Man saved him, and he's like, "Oh no, I hope it's not the Chameleon again." So the Chameleon does exist. The Chameleon is in this universe. So I really do feel they should add that, maybe as a side mission villain, like they did with Tombstone. There's so many other candidates from Spidey's Rogues Gallery that have never been featured in a game. I'm glad we're finally getting Kraven, but we somewhat got a piece of Craven in the Spider-Man Edge of Time game and in the Spider-Man 3 video game, both on the PS2 and PS3. So Spider-Man has fought Craven in the video games before, so it's not a big deal to have him there. I'm thinking the big ones that I mentioned earlier, Chameleon, Hydro Man, right, Sandman. Yeah, even though Sandman was featured in the third Spider-Man game and the Edge of Time game, but you get what I'm trying to say. It would be cool to see them in this universe, to see if they've just been born like Doc Ock, or if they've been there for years and he's fought them before. He never really talks about the villains he's fought. Following on to that, the returning villains, obviously we've got to see the Sinister Six return. So Scorpion and Rhino. Although Rhino may have been slightly overused in the first two games, especially when they brought him back in Miles Morales. Kingpin definitely has to come back. He's the big boss. He is the big crime boss of New York. Kingpin. It's in the name, So, he's the big bad, so he definitely needs to return. Like, maybe getting out of jail on a technicality, or he's bribed a jury to get him out. A possible continuation of the Tombstone storyline. It could be developed, because we developed a somewhat cure for him in the first game. It would be great to see that explored a little bit more. Is he human now? Is he half human? Or has the cure worn off and is he just a full-blown unstoppable monster again? It would be cool to see something like that. Vulture, again, another one that has to return, even if he's just a side villain. But as I've said as well, it was stated that he was Spidey's first big villain, so he has to come back. Doc Ock as well. I do feel that perhaps maybe making a cameo, like a prison visit from Parker for advice on something on those lines. Given his huge role in the first game as like a father figure to Peter, I don't really think he needs a big role in this game. But he does deserve to be there. He deserves to be that father figure for Peter, because without the arms and without the chip, Ock should be getting better. He still might be a little cray-cray, but he should be getting better. And the fact is, he hasn't revealed Peter's identity. And that's one thing he could have done. He could have told everyone in the raft who Spider-Man was. And he hasn't. Much like Adrian Toomes in the Homecoming franchise. He could have told everybody who Spider-Man was. And he didn't. Kept it to himself. And I really respect that about villains. Because it shows that even though the villains are cray-cray and evil and villainous and whatnot, it shows that even though they've found out their identities, they've found some way to earn, the hero has earned that villain's respect. That's why they haven't revealed their identity, even though they found it out. It's like, I get that he's been a thorn in my side. I get that he's beaten the crap out of me. I get he's foiled my plans. But I respect him. I really do. And that's why I'm not gonna blow the whistle. But yeah, moving on, and finally, I would like to talk about character cameos. Of course, we have the upcoming Wolverine game as well, in the same universe as Marvel Spider-Man. So it would be super dope and super cool setting him up for a cameo in Spider-Man 2. I think that would tease us quite sexually for a good bit until that game drops. Even if it's just something like it was in the Ultimate Spider-Man game on PS2, where Venom bumps into him in a bar. I think it would be cool to have something very similar to that. Like it's a mission or something. You swing up to this bar, you see a bike parked outside, obviously Wolverine's bike. You have to go in this bar as Peter Parker, and Wolverine's in there just tearing the place up. You know, he's fighting everybody. And Peter was going to go in there to, I don't know, interview someone or take some photos or just investigate without being Spider-Man. Or even so, he goes in as Spider-Man, and he's looking at Wolverine fighting these dudes, and he's like, I am not getting in on that. It'd just be really cool to have a cameo, even if it's a post-credit cameo. It would be really cool just to see it and give us that tease that he is in that same universe, because we already know he's in the same universe, but having him appear, it would all just be like, oh, it'd just be that one moment where you just gobsmacked and awestruck. You're like, but anyway, that's my theories and my speculations and my hypotheticals for what we want to see in Spider-Man 2. So feel free to let me know in the comments what you guys think. I do apologise, this video's been a little bit longer than I expected, but things happen, you know. When you get in the groove, you just keep talking. So I'm going to end it there real quick. So thank you all for stopping by. I do appreciate it. Once again, if you are new to the channel, please make sure you smash that like button and drop me a subscribe, because it would just be your good deed of the day. Same applies if you are a returning viewer. So yeah, that's it then. So this has been Gamer Dude, happy gaming, and I will catch you all in the next one, guys.